Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're stepping out of our comfortable, everyday reality and into a world that feels incredibly familiar, right up until the shadows start to lengthen and twist. We're skipping our usual agenda today because, well, we have something genuinely gripping to dive into. We are exploring author Rina Lynn's gritty, high-stakes universe, focusing specifically on the explosive first book in the Prepare for the End series titled A Safe Haven. Now, if you're used to standard, predictable survival stories where the heroes just gather up some supplies and wait out the storm, yeah, you're going to want to leave those expectations at the door. We are looking at a narrative where the collision between ordinary life and ancient supernatural horror creates this absolute breathless tension. It's a universe that literally demands your attention from page one.
In a world gone mad. Okay, let's just pause right there for a second. That cold open immediately establishes the incredibly high stakes of this survival narrative. We're not looking at a slow, gentle, predictable decline into some dystopian future. The lore here describes a sudden, violent fracturing of reality itself. I mean, imagine waking up, pouring your morning coffee, planning out your weekend, only to have the very fabric of society tear wide open by the afternoon. Ordinary people, folks just like you and me, are violently thrust into entirely extraordinary and terrifying circumstances. It's the pure, unadulterated panic of a sudden societal collapse, where the rules of civilization just evaporate in the blink of an eye.
The world of A Safe Haven captures this terrifying transition perfectly. Think of a grand, almost peaceful house blanketed in the quiet of winter snow. It looks secure, right? It looks like a refuge. But it is completely surrounded by encroaching, inescapable danger. You've got a roaring fire threatening to consume the borders, medical needles implying a sinister hidden threat, dark underground passageways suggesting that the very foundation of safety is totally compromised, and looming over it all, a fiery dragon. It's a brilliant metaphor for an illusion of safety that is completely under siege by a multifaceted, overwhelming enemy.
Which brings us to our first major theme, an idealistic world shattered.
The author brilliantly sets you up for devastation here by grounding you in genuine warmth first. Before the collapse, we actually get to know this group of incredibly relatable, grounded characters. They aren't hardened super soldiers, they're everyday people defined by their sharp wit, their deep, loyal friendships, and their profound, authentic love for God. They host dinners, they joke around, they build a beautiful, wholesome community. But that idealistic foundation, it exists only to make the ensuing whiplash that much more devastating. Almost instantly, that warmth is suffocated. The world just melts down. It is completely shattered by sudden chaos and widespread panic. And the contrast is agonizing. The exact people you've just grown to love and laugh with are suddenly fighting for their lives in a totally unrecognizable landscape.
And the root cause of this sudden breakdown? Well, it's far worse than a political crisis or a grid failure. The age-old war awakens. This narrative is fundamentally driven by the age-old war. It's an ancient, cosmic conflict where the Kingdom of Darkness literally declared war against the Kingdom of Heaven. But listen, this isn't abstract theology, and it definitely isn't ancient history stuck in the past. This spiritual war is literal. It is bleeding directly into modern times, spilling out onto neighborhood streets and right inside people's living rooms. We're looking at the climax of a supernatural battle, an invasion of reality preparing for the end times, and it's being fought right in the middle of ordinary people's lives. These citizens didn't ask for this war, but they are forced to become soldiers in it anyway.
To understand how everyday people fit into this massive spiritual meat grinder, we have to examine the foundational lore, bloodlines, light versus dark.
This is where the universe of A Safe Haven gets incredibly fascinating to me. Because the conflict isn't just about the choices you make today, it's about the generational weight of choices made long before you were even born. The lore maps out generations-old decisions that force everyday people into a biblical deadline. On one side, we have family lines who, long ago, chose God and righteousness. On the other side, we have family lines who actively chose Satan and the demonic realm. These are concrete bloodlines. That means a character might be targeted today because of a dark pact their great-grandfather made a century ago. It creates a terrifying reality where a new generation is born specifically to fight in the last days, forced to answer for ancestral debts and choose their ultimate side in a war they just inherited.
Now, if the mention of faith in God makes you think this is a gentle, predictable, sanitized, inspirational story, you need to completely reset your expectations right now, because this is absolutely not your mama's fiction.
The truth isn't always pretty, but it's still the truth. That direct quote from the source material serves as a stark, unapologetic warning. The events unfolding in this narrative are brutal, raw, and visceral. Often fiction in this genre kind of tends to pull its punches, putting a safe little filter over the reality of evil. Well, Rina Lynn rips that filter completely off. This story goes to incredibly dark places, proving that the enemy side is genuinely ugly, violent, and horrifying.
You can really see this lack of a filter in the raw elements of the approaching darkness. We're not just talking about bad weather or supply chain shortages here. We are talking about dark rituals happening in otherwise quiet, unassuming neighborhoods. We're talking about houses with hidden, terrifying secrets baked into their very foundations. There are direct, undeniable, supernatural encounters that completely shatter the character's understanding of reality. Satanic ceremonies being performed in the shadows, and honestly, perhaps most terrifying of all, unexpected bloodlines. That trusted friend you've known for years, the person watching your back, they might suddenly swap sides because of an ancient demonic lineage they belong to. It is a gritty reality where law enforcement is infiltrated, the institutions meant to protect you are totally compromised, and safety is an absolute illusion.
With all these dark, terrifying elements converging on our characters, the chaos just expands exponentially in preparing for the end.
As the series progresses, the stakes rise to an almost unbearable level. We see the gathering of God's men. This is a group of normal guys being forced to train, equipping themselves for both kinetic, physical combat, and brutal spiritual warfare. But this preparation is met with devastating escalation. The narrative eventually forces this desperate plea: is there any safe place amidst shattered glass, blood, and fire? The antagonist of this lore, this ruthless figure known as the Serpent King, he doesn't just want to defeat those who oppose his kingdom. He wants to completely and utterly destroy them, physically and spiritually.
This relentless escalation constantly forces you, the reader, to evaluate your own moral boundaries. The narrative asks, how far can a man be pushed? Imagine watching the systems you rely on fail completely. Imagine seeing the people you love most in the world targeted and deeply traumatized by an unstoppable evil. In that moment, where exactly is the line between everyday civility and pure, unadulterated, primal survival?
What will you do to protect your family if you knew the perpetrator would continue to attack? If you knew the police were either compromised or non-existent, and absolutely no one was coming to help? What dark choices would you justify for love? The story plunges you into these deep psychological depths, demanding that you ask yourself, is there ever a right time to do the wrong thing?
Ultimately, as the world melts down and eternal destinies are chosen one agonizing decision at a time, everything boils down to one final provocative question posed by the characters themselves. Who will I serve? It's the ultimate choice presented in a safe haven. Because this isn't just a book about surviving the apocalypse, it's about what happens to your soul while you do it. I highly encourage you to step into Rina Lynn's universe, pick up a copy of A Safe Haven, and discover how these characters navigate the end of the world. I hope this explainer has given you a compelling look into this gritty, high-stakes series. Keep learning, keep exploring, and I'll catch you next time.